Live on GTV. We're streaming live on the website of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, which is www.gbcghanaonline.com, and we're streaming live on Facebook as well on the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation's page on Facebook. So you can search for Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, the video will pop up, and you can follow this discussion on Facebook as well. And we are live on Unique 95.7 FM. My name is Abdul Hayi Moomen, and I'm sitting in for your regular host, Dr. G.K. Enim Wright. And this evening, we will focus on the End SARS protest in Nigeria. And I'm sure you are aware that in the last couple of weeks, some Nigerian youth took to the streets of Nigeria demonstrating against the special anti-robbery squad of the Nigerian Police Service, asking on the government to put a stop to actually bring to an end the existence of that squad. They allege that instead of fighting crime, the SARS is now fighting the youth of Nigeria and so on. We will look at this issue and perhaps also look at what kind of, because they say Nigeria is the big brother in Africa, and when Nigeria sneezes, the rest of Africa, especially Ghana, is likely to catch a cold. If this applies, what lessons can Ghana learn from this? And that's why we have with us in the studio Mr. Adib Saani. Mr. Adib Saani is an international relations expert. He's also a security analyst as well. Mr. Adib, thank you very much for joining us. We are grateful that you have joined us in the studio. Later on, we shall engage Mr. Dr. Chukwemeka Eze. He's Executive Director of OneUp on Zoom, and then Dr. Ken Ahosu, Senior Research Fellow at Lestiad of the University of Ghana, will also join us on phone. But before then, some GBC staff, journalists and cameramen here won some awards at the GJA Awards last night. Justice Mengo, Betty Arthur, Pelvis Achukwade, Peggy Amadonko, Ekwia Oforuwa Dakon, Beatrice Senaju, and of course Ibrahim Oponkwati. You all won awards, and we are indeed very proud of you. Congratulations for the awards you won and for making GBC proud. But to my big brother Samson Ladi Ayeni for coming up as the Journalist of the Year, congratulations to you as well. Mr. Adib, once again, welcome to the program. Let's start by looking at SARS. We woke up one day and social media was awash with stories about a group calling for the end to that group called SARS. But first of all, so what is SARS?
Well, SARS is an acronym for Special Anti-Robbery Squad. That was put together by the Nigerian government as a special unit within the Nigerian police force to combat the rising, spate of crime, especially robbery in Nigeria. This issue didn't start today. I mean, this has existed for some time now, because as far back as 2017, there were some protests against SARS, which was disbanded by the government. And interestingly, Abdul, in 2018, the disbanded group was re-disbanded, and in 2017, the double disbanded group was again disbanded. And just recently they disbanded it.
So when you talk about this group being disbanded in 2017, and so exactly how was it disbanded? Because from what you are telling us, then there was a re-emergence of that same group with the same name. How did that happen? No,
actually, a lot of names have been changed. Right. And the last change was in 2019, when it was finally, named SARS. As a matter of fact, this year has been again disbanded according to the Nigerian government, and it's now called SWAT, Special Weapons and Tactics. But a lot of Nigerians contend that this is superficial. Like I always say, it's the same appeal, just that it's in a recycled bottle, and there's no commitment whatsoever on the part of the Nigerian government to listening to, of course, the demands of the protesters. The unfortunate thing is a lot of powers was given to this special unit that could stop you in the middle of the road and demand your phone. I mean, they could go into your phone, and so a lot of Nigerians felt their human rights was violated. As a matter of fact, the commanding officer for SARS at the point mentioned that for a young man to drive a car worth 7 million naira, no, they have to investigate. You know, so it was really a major problem, because a lot of these officers were engaged in, according to Amnesty International, extrajudicial killings. Some were extorting monies from suspects. As a matter of fact, a lady spoke about an ordeal where she had to go to the bank ATM with members of this special squad to withdraw money for them. A lot of Nigerians were beaten. Some were harassed, some were intimidated, so the people just had enough and decided to come out in their numbers. And on this occasion, it particularly gained traction because a lot of celebrities joined the bandwagon. I was listening to Falls granting an interview to Christiana Rampo on CNN. Techno, Runtown, and a whole lot of others have joined. And that is why you and I are getting to perhaps hear about it this year. But this is something that has existed for some time now.
But see, the fact also is that in every group you are bound to find the bad nuts. So even if it were the regular police service, you would still find the bad nuts. If it were the regular military, you would find the bad nuts there. But so do these bad nuts that Nigerians have complained about within the SARS, do they represent the majority of the membership of SARS, to the extent that these bad nuts then defeat the whole purpose for which SARS was put together in the first place?
Well, SARS violated a lot of principles underpinning modern-day policing.
So that's my question. So when you talk about SARS as a group or some individual members may be negligible compared to the entirety of the group.
There's absolutely no doubt that in every human society, every human institutions, we're bound to have some, few bad nuts. But the problem with SARS is, of course, it is not all of them who are engaged in such activities. However, it was becoming more like a daily ritual. I mean, there was growing sense of fear with their activities. There was growing reports of them engaging in certain activities, which, even though it's unfair in one way or the other, was used to paint all of SARS with a single stroke of brush. But like I said earlier, they violated certain principles underpinning police. I mean, one of it being transparency. A lot of Nigerians have called for justice, Some of the victims who died, others have been hurt, others feel they've been wronged in one way or the other. But no justice is coming, There's no accountability as well. So all of these is what culminated into that anger. But Abdul, it is worth noting that what is happening in Nigeria now goes beyond SARS, okay? According to the Washington-based Brookings Institute, Nigeria has the second largest number of people living below the poverty line. After India, over 80 million Nigerians of the 206 million of the population live on less than $1 a day. Unemployment is high, crime is high because there's a growing market for organized crime who are specialized in trafficking of drugs, who are specialized in trafficking of small arms and light weapons, and even humans. The degree of corruption in Nigeria is something that really defies logic. Nigeria is a country of contradiction. I mean, Nigeria is a classical case of a country that is rich in mineral resources, yet it is poor. The ethnic division, in Nigeria is so pervasive, unlike Ghana, when people are succinctly ethnocentric and all that. But it's so pervasive, it's so open in Nigeria. The level of mismanagement, institutional corruption is so high that it has transcended to the very grassroots. So this is a grudge a lot of Nigerians had already existing. Okay, so this SARS movement, even though the trigger is SARS, But it's a unique opportunity for a lot of Nigerians, especially the youth, to vent out their frustration, their disenchantment about what is going on. So it has gone beyond
So
SARS.
was it not this, when you talked about contradiction, was it not these same frustrations that the group SARS, regardless of its other previous names, was put together to control, to bring some sanity too? So, for example, following the Biafran War, Nigeria had some amount of disunity. You've talked about that, and then there was disorder as well, and then crime began to grow. Then it became necessary to get a special squad that would be able to deal with specific crimes, organized crimes, and 419 emanated from Nigeria, scam and so on. So if we ask for SARS to be brought to an end, does that automatically bring armed robbery, fraud, scamming, organized crime like you referred to? These will continue in the absence of SARS, wouldn't they?
Of course, it would continue. It is very similar to the Black Lives Matter protesters calling for the defunding of the police service. But you see, in policing, we have certain laws or certain principles underpinning it. And it is all hinged around what we call the 9 pillar principles of modern day policing, which was propounded by Sir Robert Peel, who is the founder of the Metropolitan Police in the UK and later became the British Prime Minister. And it is a benchmark, it serves as a reference point to best international practices so far as policing is concerned. And it's hinged around the fact that the more force you use in certain situations, the less you're likely to get the people to cooperate with the police. Okay, so as much as you can, you should use diplomacy. Unless diplomacy fails, then you might be forced to use minimal force or perhaps go beyond that. Okay, unfortunately, that wasn't the case here. And like I always say, anytime I have the opportunity, I always point to the fact that without the people, without you and I, the police cannot do their work. Most of the intelligence they get is from civilian sources. Okay, so if you don't engender your relationship with the population based on mutual trust and respect, you're bound to have the population rejecting you, which would invariably make your work extremely difficult. And that is the problem with SARS. And one of the mistakes they have committed on this occasion is the lack of transparency, is the culture of impunity, lack of accountability, and of course they have failed on this occasion to engage the people. This, in as much as a civilian does the wrong thing and is punished, like it happened with the trotro meet and the driver who beat up the police officer. They paraded them on TV. They were crying, ma, like children. The same way, if an officer harasses or assaults Ghanaian Times reporters, he should also be dealt with. But you see, the inconsistent application or enforcement of the law is what is breeding this mistrust. And like I always say, it creates what we call a discord, a disjoint between the civilians on one hand and the police on the other hand. And that is what results in the lack of trust and confidence.
Let me now bring in Dr. Eze, Executive Director of the West Africa Network for Peace Building. Thank you very much for joining us on Talking Point for this discussion. Let me start by asking you, because you, apart from being the Executive Director of WANEP, you are also a Nigerian. We want to look at the genesis of the group called SARS. How and when did it become necessary for the police service in Nigeria to put together such a force? All right, so I'm sure Mr. Eze cannot hear me at the moment, and so we'll work on that. Mr. Eze, can you hear me now? All right, so we'll prepare for him to join us. Clearly, he can't hear us. But so you see, at a point, people were calling on leaders in West Africa and beyond to speak to the issue. Our own president was called upon to speak to the issue. at the very early stages. Later on, the Nigerian president tweeted, and people said he was throwing shades at some other presidents for judging without necessarily having all the details. At what level should other countries get involved in other state affairs? So, for example, as we saw in the case of SARS.
Well, in diplomacy, the things you see is extremely critical.
Yes.
Because it has the potential of making or unmaking a relationship between two countries. In security studies, we always say that the art of diplomacy is the art of telling someone to go to hell in a very nice way, and the person would ask for direction, you know. So it is always important that whatever, you know, leaders, especially within the subcontinent, say, that is carefully carved, the words carefully chosen. So it doesn't cause a diplomatic spat between their government and the Nigerian government. Because like you said, Nigeria is a big brother. Nigeria is ECOWAS, ECOWAS is Nigeria. Even within, if you take a closer look at the ECOWAS parliamentary setup, Nigeria has the highest number of parliamentarians. Indeed, Nigeria has played a very critical role in the formation of ECOWAS, and of course in contributing troops to various peacekeeping missions across the sub-region, okay? So we need to be extremely careful with, you know, what we see when things like this happen. But I think it came a bit too late. We should have talked about this. The president of Ghana, as a matter of fact, the ECOWAS chair should have spoken about this without having to delay for Kanye West, Beyonce, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, the Archbishop of Canterbury, for all of them to talk about it beyond Africa before he came out to say it after some of us criticized. I mean, I issued a statement in that regard. And I'm saying so based on, you know, certain...
What difference would it have made?
Okay. You see, when ECOWAS started in 1975, it was more like, you know, an economic community. Not much credence was given to security until the non-aggression protocol was signed in 1978. Okay, even though there were some changes to it in 1981. But of particular interest to us, with specificity to what is happening with SARS in Nigeria, is the 2001 ECOWAS Convention on Good Governance. Okay, that was ratified by all, you know, the ECOWAS countries. That pointed the fact, specifically in Article 1, that ECOWAS member states should, you know, respect the rights of the people. There's the need for an independent media. There's the need for an independent judiciary and all that, okay? But what was happening in Nigeria for the past 2-3 weeks is in clear contravention of those principles outlined in the 2001 Convention on Good Governance by ECOWAS. Okay, that is why it is extremely critical for our president to come out and say something. But you see, I've personally heard a lot of people talk about it. I was even, you know, on one of the radio stations with my lecturer, Dr. Echidasu, who said, no, the president shouldn't be, you know, forced to saying things because it can cause issues. But you see, the thing is, we are not asking for the president to come out to tell us what private discussions he's having with President Buhari, or come to give us a detailed account of what they are doing behind the scenes. But the mere fact that you come out to solidarize with the people of Nigeria without necessarily taking sides or issuing a scathing critique or attack on any of those sides is refreshing, because it so appeals to the conscience of the people to the effect that, look, ECOWAS is very committed to ensuring everything is fine. We solidarize with the people of Nigeria. We have you in our minds, in our prayers. And that alone is enough to give some level of reassurance to the people. It doesn't overnight stop what is going on. So when I hear people on social media saying that, okay, the president has spoken, has it changed anything? Meanwhile, these same people were saying, no, there's no need for the president to speak, citing some very funny diplomatic, you know, things that they didn't really have a full understanding of. No, we are not saying the president should come out and criticize a side, okay? However, the president came out to speak about it, and a lot of the social media followers came out and said, okay, the president has spoken about it. Has it changed anything? No. When the president spoke about George Floyd, He didn't speak about it, or he didn't tweet about it hoping he would come back to life. No. Okay, but it's just a way of solidarizing with the people.
Okay, so let's now look at the repercussions of these kinds of protests, the NSAS protests. We've seen the subsequent killings of some innocent protesters. But what kind of repercussions do these protests have on, say, Ghana and perhaps the rest of West Africa?
Well, that is a very intelligent question, to say the least. You see, West Africa is a very closely knit society. When we were in school, we studied about the Mali Empire, the Songhai Empire, the Ghana Empire, etc. We were one until the Berlin Conference, also known as the Kungu Conference, in 1887, decided that the Europeans all take, chunk of Africa. That is where we had the artificial borders coming in. But that notwithstanding, we still have Evers in Ghana and in Togo. We have Mushis in Ghana and in Burkina Faso. We have Wangares in Ghana and, of course, Mali. Fulanis cut across. So that means we are still a unit. So the possibility that whatever happens in one country can spill over to another country is extremely high. At the height of the conflict in Ivory Coast in 2011, there were Liberian mercenaries who were recruited to go fight in there. In Libya, there were mercenaries from Morocco, Tunisia, and even beyond, Syria, coming to fight there. When there was a civil war in Sierra Leone, there were Liberian mercenaries. That is why President Charles Taylor was arrested eventually. Okay, so whatever happens in Nigeria has a direct implication on all other countries within the sub-region, especially Ghana. We have over 1 million Ghanaians living in Nigeria, and our reports state that there are well over 3 million Nigerians living in Ghana. So the possibility that if Nigeria descends further into chaos, people would be fleeing the violence, and their favorite destination would be Ghana, because we are an Anglophone country, is extremely high, and will be caught unaware. And this would pose a cataclysmic economic, social, and even security nightmare to the Ghanaian authorities, where even already existing, social structures is not enough to contain those of us within. So you can imagine if there is an influx of people fleeing the violence. That is quite disturbing. And it also goes without saying, based on scientific, empirical early warning signals, that what is happening in Nigeria is not very different from Ghana. We have issues of corruption. We have issues of ethnicity, zero-sum politics, people losing confidence in institutions of the state, culture of impunity. We have issues of the lack of accountability and all that. And it can play into the hands of the silent majority in Ghana who are not happy with the political elites. Let us not forget that the Black Lives Matter protest in America inspired a lot of other protests all across the world. So the possibility that what is happening in Nigeria would inspire other people across the West African sub-region is extremely high, including Ghana.
All right, so I'll now go to Zoom and speak to Dr. Executive Director of the West African Network for Peace Building. Thank you very much, Doc. If you can hear me now, my question to you initially had to do with whether or not you are able to tell us, because you are also a Nigerian, the genesis of the formation of this group known as SARS, when it became necessary, why it became necessary. Are you able to tell us, sir? All right, I'm sure we're still struggling to establish contact with him there. So you were telling us that if...
basically the conditions in Nigeria is not different from Ghana.
So what must we do in Ghana to ensure that we don't end up having similar protests?
You see, what is happening in Nigeria is a youth awakening. The people have been re-conscientized. In the past, we used not to be so participatory in the political process. We thought governance is the work of the politicians. But it would interest you to know that market women selling tomatoes. They are able to break down the issues and subject it to some scientific analysis that is mind-blowing. Okay, so we cannot underestimate the people and their level of political literacy, and so we cannot always take them for granted.
I recall the Drop That Chamber agenda when Parliament proposed to have a new chamber, and how individuals who got up both on social media and sometimes they even marched to the House of Parliament to protest any attempt to build a new chamber, and that idea was shelved.
And yes, and in the US, heckling even the president is nothing. I mean, they just walk you out and that's it, okay? But in Ghana, it's something that is unthinkable, that. So at a point, people would start heckling political leaders. I think about some few years ago, we had a situation where the First Lady was delivering a speech at the Legon Medical Facility, and a young man appeared with something
that
like that.
Was in 2018.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
He was later arrested, sent to the Legon police station. But at a point, people would become more and more aware of what is going on, and so it is important that governments listen to the people. You cannot listen, you cannot address every issue. We are not a utopian society. Every community has its issues. But going forward, it is important to invest in what I always call human security. It's extremely important. Our focus has all been on fiscal security. Since General retired Nunu Mensah was removed from his position as the head of the Human Security Directorate at the National Security Secretariat, the institution is almost defunct. But that notwithstanding, I was particularly happy that the new Security and Intelligence Agencies Act 1030 is asking for attention to be given to human security.
Let me announce that the WhatsApp line is on your screens right now for those who want to join the conversation. If you want to ask any question or make a comment, please by all means go ahead and WhatsApp us on that line. The WhatsApp line is on your screen. Mr. Doctor, I beg your pardon, Eze is on the line right now, and I'm sure this time we will be able to talk to him. Doctor, thank you very much for your time. Tell me, if you can hear me now, whether or not, when, I beg your pardon, it became necessary, why it became necessary, and how it became necessary to form that group, which today is known as SARS, which has resulted in these protests and which has become SWAT, as we are made to believe.
Thank you very much, and maybe so sorry about these technological challenges. Unfortunately, what has happened over time is that because of the insecurity in Nigeria, they needed a unit within the police system that can be trained and also sustained for this kind of operation. So they formulated what they call the Special Anti-Robbery Squad to take care of three issues. Number one is issues of armed robbery. Number two, kidnapping. Number three, to also support the army on its effort at addressing the issue of violent extremism. And to some extent also, they played a role on the farmer-herder conflict. But I think over time, because of this resource they started recording, they also began to get very exorbitant. And to that effect, to that extent, they also started encroaching on citizens' rights. So, for example, some of the issues they were supposed to address is the issue of cybercrime. And on that basis, they also felt that once you use a certain type of phone, or you are also carrying a laptop, it means that you are also one of the advanced fraud people, otherwise known as Yahoo. So based on that, they stopped everybody on the road that they assumed was using an iPhone or was carrying a laptop on what they call stop and search. And they committed all manners of atrocity, and that now brought to the fore the kind of activities they were doing. So over time, the citizens have been enduring it. So even the things that other police officers committed, everybody said it was SARS because they had a way they operated. You know, they operated with as if they were not under any authority, as it were. So when this demonstration started, the leadership of the police felt that, okay, since SARS have become unpopular, but the issues SARS was supposed to address has not gone away, best thing is to try a replacement. In my opinion, that replacement with SWAT came at the wrong time, even with all the good intentions.
Okay, so I have two follow-up questions, and I'll follow up on the last point you made about the SWAT. There are those who believe that it's just a name, a change in nomenclature, that the name may have changed, but the substance remains the same, the personnel remain the same. Is this true?
No, that is not true. The first thing is that the first thing that the Inspector General of Police did when they disbanded SARS is to say he recalled all the police officers that were involved in SARS. They were supposed to go through a psychological test and then redeployed into other units. The SWAT was a new formation with a different criteria altogether, which include but not limited to the fact that you must go through psychological tests, you must go through training, which includes human rights training. That did not happen with SARS, you know. But I think that the contention that people had was the period between the disbanding of SARS and the instituting of SWAT.
Dr. Sorry, Doc. Doc, if you allow me, but we understand that in 2017 there was a similar disbandment and a new formation. Then in 2018, a similar disbandment of the same group and a new formation, a new name. Then in 2020, we are seeing the disbandment of SARS and the formation of a new group. SARS did not exist in 2017. It did not exist in 2018. It existed in 2019. But prior to that, other groups had existed, but in character, they have played out the same. This is the fears that a lot of people are expressing.
Well, there are two ways to look at it. The first thing is the leadership at the various moments or times were different. That's number one. Number two is that the public outcry was not exactly the same, in my opinion. It was pockets of allegations. This was a nationwide movement that said enough is enough. So in my opinion, I feel there was some level of sincerity amongst the leadership of the police. However, you cannot also rule away the fact that this was happening at a point that the trust deficit between the citizens and the government on one hand, and between the citizens and the police on the other hand, was at the lowest echelon. Right. So you can't rule that away. So based on the history of we have disbanded and yet the activities continued, the citizens did not believe this current leadership of the police.
Doc, my final question to you before we say goodbye to you will be, so how will Nigeria, because you work with OneApp, what kind of suggestions would you give to the Nigerian government to navigate this very complex issue?
I think the first thing is that the Nigerian government needs to, as quickly as yesterday, begin to address the human rights atrocities that have been committed this period. Okay? The second thing, in my opinion, is that the long agitation about the decentralization of the police system needs to happen urgently. There needs to be a law that decentralizes the police system in Nigeria to the state and local government level. The 21st century security threats cannot be policed from one central police unit in Abuja. The third thing is that they need to go further to engage people at the community level, to also now increase the confidence of the police. The confidence of the police is so low at this moment. The citizens don't trust them. The government is not paying them well, and therefore their confidence is at the lowest ebb. The fourth thing is that the community policing that ensure that citizens play a role in the policing architecture need to be activated. It is important that the citizens feel that they are part and parcel of the policing in this era of crime. I've always argued that the greatest challenge of policing in the 21st century is if you want to use analog policing for digital crimes. And I think that our leaders need to think about that.
Wow. Thank you very much, Dr. Eze. Dr. Eze is the Executive Director of the West Africa Network for Peace Building. Mr. Adib Saani, International Relations Expert, Security Analyst, is here with me in the studio. And I'd like us to take it from the point he left off. You cannot use analog policing to combat digital crimes.
I mean, that's a very loaded statement, and it's very consistent with my opinions about, policing, particularly in Ghana over the years. Don't we ask ourselves why in many situations the criminals are always a step ahead of law enforcement? Because of our inability to leverage modern technology to deal with crime in the country. In security studies, we say because of new issues. Now we have issues of religious fundamentalism, because of new actors, because of new interests. Now we have states, sub-states, sub-states, and of course non-states, other non-state interests in issues of crime, because of new weapons, because now rape is a weapon of crime. Water can be used as a weapon. A classical case is the Grand Renaissance Dam, which is being constructed by Ethiopia and is causing a rift between Ethiopia and Egypt. Recently, the president of the U.S., Donald Trump, made a statement about the fact that the Egyptians would blow up the dam. That was quite irresponsible. So crime is changing by the day. So Abdul, you don't expect to train officers 3 years ago and expect them to be able to counter today's threats, because now the criminals have become so sophisticated. Their ways, it changes by the day. So if you use the archaic training methods you have, there's no way you can confront them. That is why it's important to refresh their minds, their skills on periodic basis. Secondly, the crime labs. I think we have only about 2 crime labs in Ghana. We need crime labs in every single regional capital in Ghana. So when you collect evidence in WA, you don't have to travel all the way to Kumasi or Accra.
Yeah.
Okay, you can just get a crime lab within WA, and it will help to a very large extent. Now, we use DNA, we use fingerprint database, but we are not leveraging on these technology, even though some of it even exists, because we have a number of biometric databases in Ghana.
Right.
We have passports office. Before you get your passport, you go through, they take your fingerprint and all that. SNIT, they have your biometric information. Even the recent voters exercise is biometric. NIE is biometric. National Health is biometric. So this is common sense. This is no rocket science.
Okay, so
why don't we integrate these systems? But, well, we can come back.
There are a few questions for you and a few remarks as well. The security of a nation is very important to its citizens. So what happened in Nigeria is just unfortunate. And SARS is in order. But if the citizens demonstrate with violence and destroy public property, I don't think that is needful. Also, if SARS uses force to shoot and kill citizens for protecting life and property, this is not right. Okay, so Peter, you sent that one. Amadou Sule, you say that for the first time I have to agree with a very intelligent guest. He says the demonstrators are right. Perhaps so, but what if we all support these demonstrations? What it means is that every time criminals can come together, get a few people to start demonstrating, then we all join them, we defeat the security forces, and then we have no law and order. We must be sanitarius, what does that mean? Okay, we must have sanity even when we are demonstrating for the right thing. Thank you very much. Others are saying here on my WhatsApp, you say that we are tired of remaining in an abusive relationship with the government that treats us like animals. Their total control over our mental, physical, and emotional state is a complete psychological torture. It's either they change, they promise, or a divorce. And SARS, Prince Obata from Adenta, you sent this one. SARS, he says, I should ask you, why the killings of youth if they refuse to transfer money to the SARS account? I don't know what that means.
Well, there are reports of extrajudicial killings, yes, but we don't know why they were killed, whether they were protesters or whether they refused to cooperate with the SARS, squad or whatever it is. We don't know. But Amnesty International has documented that.
Right. It says SARS has no uniform, no office, no plate number on their cars. They dress like gangsters, smoke and do drugs. These are allegations. Are we aware of this? That the SARS group has no uniforms and so on and so forth?
Yes. I mean, a lot of them, they are not in uniform. I mean, they wear everyday outfits, and some of them are undercover as well.
All right. It says, good show, Mr. Moomen. This special anti-robbery squad should end now so as not to ginger other ECOWAS countries to follow suit. Nana Kwatin Bekwai, Nana Kwatin from Bekwai, you sent in that one, and you say I should ask my guest, what can the police do to maintain the trust of the civilians, especially in Nigeria? Nana Kwatin from Bekwai, what can the police in Nigeria do?
There should be accountability. I mean, when because currently that is one of the demands of the protesters, justice. According to them, a lot of people have been wronged, some have been killed, some have been maimed, and they need justice. So they need these officers responsible to go through the process.
I'm being asked to take a break. I'll take a break. When we return, we'll take a few more of your messages and then we'll wrap it all up.
My name is Kobi Asma. I'm the Chief Executive of Type Company Limited. And
road engineers sometimes construct speed humps in an effort to make drivers reduce speeds, especially in residential areas, commercial areas, and near schools where speeds of less than 30 kilometers per hour are required. If you are driving in such areas, please slow down so that you can bring your vehicle to a stop when you have to. Stop road crashes now. Stay alive.
This road safety education is brought to you by the National Road Safety Authority.
Right, this is Talking Points. We're just wrapping up the conversation with Mr. Adib Saani. Earlier, we spoke to Dr. Chukwuemeka, the Executive Director of OneUp on Zoom. Mr. Adib Saani is here with me in the studio. Mr. Adib, so what we'll do is in the next 3 minutes, I'll quickly go through some of the messages, and those that you have to respond to, you quickly do that for us, punchy, so we can wrap up very quickly. This one says, I am Ken from Tetegu. I'm a Nigerian, and I don't think that SARS is the major reason that triggered this protest in Nigeria. Rather, I think it is because of bad governance in Nigeria, and as a citizen of Nigeria, I will not be in support of ending SARS, but rather I will suggest for the restructuring and amendment of SARS in Nigeria, but not to end SARS, because I know that Nigerian citizens are very difficult people to deal with. So in my own opinion, I will change the hashtag from end SARS to end bad governance.
Well, SARS is the immediate cause and bad governance is the remote cause, okay? But it's always important to approach it multidimensionally rather than just on SARS alone.
Okay, so George Venato from Abeka here in Accra says, what's happening in Nigeria should be a warning to all corrupt politicians.
Well, of course.
Why just corrupt politicians? We always assume there's a politician that is corrupt.
Of course. I mean, all of us are complicit, yes. I must say. I mean, it starts from the very grassroots. So until there's a reawakening, our change of mind with it.
Lukman from Tamale says, good evening, Moomen and Adib. Actually, apart from the solidarity speech by the ECOWAS chair, he should have condemned the killings as well, because it is a violation of protection of lives of the ECOWAS citizens. He said he shouldn't have done that. Okay. Good evening, sir. In fact, your man in the studio is on top of his area of specialization. I have really enjoyed all his analysis on the issue on board. Kudos to him. It's from Isaac Ni Dote Kuma from Tema. So that's the thumbs up for you there. Good evening. Please ask the Deputy Director General. Okay, so I don't know which Deputy Director General you're talking about here, but thank you very much. There is nothing called peaceful country. It's just that the youth aren't awake enough. African leaders must wise up and speed up. It can happen anywhere. I am happy Adib Saani spoke about youth awakening. Eugene Lord from Nsawam.
Yes, of course. I mean, we cannot take the people for granted always. And Abdul, this is in particular reference to what happened with the Arab Spring. Arab governments are in some cases very despotic, but that notwithstanding, when the salesman in Tunisia set himself ablaze, see what happened. It swept across the Arab world like a joke, and even into Europe. So it is very possible here.
Let me take your closing remarks, and I apologize to the tens of you who have spent time in data sending us all the messages we couldn't, but we'll ensure that they are put up on our website so the rest of Ghana can read your comments and know what your concerns and your questions are. Mr. Adib, so let's wrap it all up. What should be the way forward for Nigeria?
Okay, well, I think they would have to listen to the protesters, because a lot of the demands, including the disbanding of the group, the justice for people who have been affected, and the protesters actually are calling on the government to improve the service of conditions for the police. So at least if they are fine, they would not engage in such nefarious activities. I think they are good calls, and the Nigerian government should listen to the people. But going forward with specificity to what is happening in Ghana, I'm particularly very disappointed and quite gobsmacked by what happened at Ududio today. I mean, it is indicative of our fears, of the things that we keep saying, but nobody seems to take us seriously, about the need for us to confront the threat, about the need for us to engage in preventative diplomacy, especially the Peace Council, which has limited itself to statement issuing. Wait until something happens, then you come out and issue statement. I mean, what is all this? It is high time. They call the political stakeholders to order. The police, they do their work. They consistently enforce the law. Because currently there's so much mistrust. I saw another video of some youth going to Asawasi, the police station, and demanding the release of some suspects who were arrested, about 10 or 11 of them. The MP there, Mutaka, also followed up and all that. We need to be very, very, very careful in this country, because the trajectory we are going is not something that is very refreshing to some of us who have done a lot of research and who are juxtaposing our case with other cases in the past.
All right, thank you very much. We ran out of time now, Mr. Adib Saani. Thank you so much for your time. Earlier, we also spoke to Dr. Chukwu Emeka, as the Executive Director of WANEP. We've been looking at the NSAS protests in Nigeria and matters arising. We are grateful for all your messages. We apologize for the many messages we didn't have time to read, but like I promised, we will ensure that all these are put up on the website so you can have the rest of Ghana see what your concerns were. Thank you very much. We'll see you again next week when we'll bring you another edition of Talking Point. Until then, have a very good night. Bye-bye.